Well, Alice, welcome back to the High Vibration Living Podcast.
Thank you so much, Whitney, for having me back. Love our conversations.
I love our conversations. You're always so insightful. I mean, you are a career astrologer, but you obviously also just have great psychic abilities. And you also, what I love that you offer is you offer career astrology, but you also offer that chart that allows people to see all their placements. That makes it so easy for people to use their astrology in all parts of their life.
Isn't it so funny? It's like such a simple thing because not all apps will give you all of these placements and it's just not organized. Like it may be organized like line by line, but like just seeing like in an actual chart. And then also the stuff beforehand, right? The couple paragraphs that I share in the free
Yeah.
report, and then you get your
Yeah.
chart. Like you're just like, oh, this is like nice. Everything is in one place, kind of like an astrology 101 like starter pack. And then of course, like that expanded version has like 15 plus pages that really dives into like, what was offered in like the free version. But yeah, it's just like very simple, very succinct. I mean, it's very indicative of my South Node in Virgo, very organized.
Yes, you are the most organized astrologer that I've ever met. And what I like about working with you is you also communicate it in a way that really makes you be able to process it and implement it in your life. And that's why I wanted to have you on to kind of kick off 2025 because I wanted to hear your thoughts on some themes in the year ahead. And then we can dive into some other ways that we can use astrology just to understand our lives and navigate our relationships and our careers.
So this is something that I think won't be a surprise to those who are already having a strong spiritual practice or are water signs. So that's our friends who are Cancer, Scorpio, or Pisces placements. And that could mean like your sun, your moon, your rising. It could mean that you have multiple planets in a combination of these water signs. It
Mhm.
could also be a combination of these houses, which is houses number 4, 8, and 12. So it's funny because I can't always like share all the information, right? It's like so that's why sometimes people they don't feel like they relate to astrology because it's very nuanced. It's not just like
Mhm.
one piece of information gives you kind of like the whole picture, right? So
Yeah.
for my water signs, and it doesn't mean just like your sun sign, you're already feeling kind of like this spiritual awakening that's going to be happening again in 2025. And for most people, it's going to come through a creative hobby, a desire to be more creative, like at work. And that extension also goes into be more free. In 2025, we're going to see unprecedented of women leaving their jobs, going to other things, other opportunities. It could also mean women staying in their jobs, but they have a side hustle or they're
Mhm.
starting a business. Like it is officially the multi hyphenate age of doing many different things. And remember, like when I started my business 6 years ago, it was like weird to do more than one thing. Like in
Yes.
LA, more normal, but in DC on the East Coast, like people are like, why don't you just do this like spiritual events company on the side and also like go work like at a PR agency, at a marketing agency? That's like my corporate background. And I was like, I just don't think I'm going to be able to do it. It's just like my whole being is going to get like sucked into this other thing that's actively generating like revenue and kind of like, oh, you're doing good, you're doing bad, like, kind of like having those like feeders in of like oh you're what you're like inputting is resulting in something versus when you have your own business, a lot of the work that you put into your own business doesn't always have a direct result immediately like when you're working for someone else. And so much has changed over the last 5 6 years. So many more people are like, you know what, I have other interests. I want to start other things. And so that's a huge change that's happening. And when I say spiritual awakening, we're redefining what spirituality means.
Yes.
And that's why I'm talking about creativity. That's why I'm talking about freedom. That's why I'm talking about financial freedom as well. Like the ability to do what your heart desires. It's moving into that heart centered living through a much more embodied way. Because, you can be like, yes, I'm following my heart, like I'm doing what I want to do, but it's very different as we kind of peel back the layers and do it even more. Does that make sense?
It really does because it's very much what I've been hearing. And it's also what I've been hearing from different teachers that I have. It's all a very similar energy. I'm curious
Yeah.
what's going to happen with men and their careers and their jobs.
It's interesting, right? Because from like what we see, kind of like what's happening in the world right now, it's a challenging time to be a man. It's a challenging time to be specifically a white man. We, over the last 20 years, have been focused on the young male, particularly the young white male. This is like a chapter, a cycle in feng shui in Chinese astrology. We've moved into a new period this year for the next 20 years where it's focused on the middle-aged woman. I know, literally, because it's 20 years, like everyone's going to be in this middle-aged category, whether it's
Yeah.
now or like they're like, oh, well, I'm only 18 like right now. Well, in 10 like in like 10 years, like you're moving very much so into that middle quote unquote aged like
Mhm.
stage of a woman, which is honestly like the best time because you have so much more clarity, you know who you are, you know what you want. And so these are the subtle changes that are happening right now. And I think that for the like men are going to have the opportunity to really rise to the occasion and like pass the baton to women in different ways of like highlighting like, you know, Whitney does really good work in this. Like we should really kind of give her a promotion or really highlight her like in this like local publication, something like that. I think that when men are being more collaborative, giving women the opportunity to really shine and to really speak up for themselves, which has been extremely challenging since forever. But we're kind of really finding ways to advocate our voices, like they will manage the changes a lot better. Additionally, like if men are seeking therapy, if they're really getting in touch with their emotions, like really understanding their bodies. I mean, as a practitioner over the last year in my yoga classes, my sound bath classes, like I have seen more men than ever before. Even
Yeah.
for like my astrology clients, like more men are just like, this is kind of different and weird, but I'm into it. I'm open to it. So it is, I think, a challenging time as we make this transition because with change, like sometimes it can be challenging, but it's happening no matter what over the next 20 years.
Yeah, and I definitely see and hear and feel that uh, our conversations about spirituality, whether it's astrology, numerology, health, wellness, energy, food vibration, alternative forms of supporting your body or supporting your mindset, all of that is going to become norm.
Yes.
10 years ago, when you and I were both in Washington, D.C., these were like our secret hobbies. Like this stuff was underground and it was hard to find like minded friends. Now you'll be able to go everywhere and find a like minded friend.
It's really about openness. It's about truth. It's about less secrets.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I feel very called during this podcast to combine like the Eastern and the Western astrology. So next year we have the North Node going into Pisces, hence why like there will be a push for spirituality. There'll be a push for like creativity. I believe that next year really, I don't think we're going to see a lot of big changes yet in like entertainment and art. But there will be a lot of people kind of revamping their artistic perspective, like creating and writing about different worlds, you know, like something like a Dune or a Harry Potter, and it will unfold in the coming years in 2026, 2027. Like we're about due for kind of like this next big like supernatural like world, right? So there was Harry Potter, then it was what's the
All
Hunger
the werewolf.
Games?
And
The
then all the
werewolves and the
the
vampires.
werewolf and the vampires, yeah.
Yes, and it could be this time around, it could be witches, it could be aliens, it could be a combination of a lot of different things. So I do feel like, you know, with this North Node in Pisces, and Saturn's going to be in Pisces as well, there's going to be such a strong exploration of spirituality and being and understanding what that means for you. And particularly next year in Chinese astrology, Eastern
Mhm.
astrology, it's going to be the wood snake year. Now, the wood snake year most closely resembles Scorpio energy. Scorpio energy is all about change and transformation. It's like karma, it's about intuition, it's about psychic abilities, it's about like deep healing. So that's another added element and kind of like the Eastern and the Western astrology always really supports one another in a very beautiful way. So I see next year as if you've been on the spiritual path, if you understand that there will be like, you know, with that element of Scorpio, there's like the truth is so important. And we're moving
Mm.
into a space where like there will be no secrets. I think that's a beautiful, beautiful thing because what we all can read energy to a certain extent. And when we kind of move more into understanding like the vibe of a situation, of a person, then it's like everything is already very apparent and very visible. You just need to kind of tune in and listen in. And when that happens, there's just no secrets. Like, you know, you just always have an inkling. You're like, you know, that person I don't really
Mm,
like, or you know, when a spouse is like, I think my partner is cheating on me, or like,
yeah.
oh, someone's like, I don't think I feel well. Like, I think I really should see the doctor. I should call. Like, all that stuff is coming more commonplace, and people are going to be practicing like how to activate their intuition. And the funny thing is, it's already happening, right? People are focusing on intuition as like, oh, the gut feeling. They're focusing on the, oh, mental health. You know, they're kind of a lot of these spiritual things are kind of being like repackaged and marketed in a different way. But at the end of the day, it's like it's the
All the
same.
same stuff.
It's the
Yeah.
same stuff.
What does the wood aspect mean with the snake? So
Ah,
most people
yes.
that are familiar with Chinese astrology, they'll see the big announcements every year. You know, it's rabbit year, it's dragon year, you know, it's this, that, whatever animal. So it's snake. But I would say more recently, we've been seeing like the subtle
Yeah.
element that goes with
Yes.
the animals. What does wood mean?
It means like new beginnings. It's about growth. It's about like creativity. It's about being flexible. So it's very appropriate for that Scorpio energy, that snake energy.
So just be flexible. We need to be flexible in the air.
I know.
Which is the snake, right? The snake doesn't have a solid skeletal system, so it's quite flexible and fluid.
Yes, it is. It very much so is. And it's just so funny how it always kind of gives us what we need, right? And so that's why the spiritual practice is very important. And the flexibility is something that's going to be a strong focus next year because with the North Node in Pisces, the South Node is in Virgo. So anybody with Virgo placements, planets in the sixth
Mhm.
house, you know, they don't like change. They like things to be just so. They like to be in control. We have
Yeah.
issues with perfectionism. And so all of that is going to be released. I know. A lot of Virgo placements have been seeing me. I look at like my reports and my
Yeah.
readings, and I just like I'm just always like if it's a report, I write in the email. I'm just like next year is going to be a really big year for change. Please come see me if you
Okay.
feel unhinged
Yes.
in
Yes.
February, March during that time because I just know. I just know now. And as someone with a South Node in Virgo, I've been preparing over this last year for this like change that's coming up, but I know that it'll still be very uncomfortable, like letting go, like not being in control. And I think a lot of high-powered women are going to be feeling this a lot more because they have found success over the years by tapping into their more masculine side, but now it's time for them to kind of let go, have other people help them, be more vulnerable. Like they can ask for help. Like the workplace is very different. Some of the things are still the same, but there's huge changes. I think there's a lot more empathy. There's not like, oh, like you're not feeling well. Like, oh, you need to take some time for like mental health, or, oh, you're a caretaker of someone in your family. Like, let's figure out how to make it work. Instead of being like, sorry, well, we still have this deadline. You have to, you have to meet it.
I definitely feel trapped between those two worlds because I essentially grew up in corporate America. So I know how to be efficient and get things done, but I am empathetic and understand, you know, that we need to put our physical, emotional, spiritual selves first, our families first in certain situations. So it is a tough thing. It is a tightrope right now as we figure out how to do business in this new age.
One of the most interesting things that even I haven't had a chance to really like zoom in and focus, and I think that in the next few weeks as we transition from like 2024 to 2025, I will have that opportunity. But oftentimes people are a little bit scared about how artificial intelligence like Gemini, ChatGPT will kind of like take over certain jobs. But I believe it is our liberation. Truly,
Yes,
it
me
is our
too.
liberation. I think the only thing that is like, or we need to focus on is will the government catch on? Because whatever way you want to slice and dice it, like the private sector business world, they're not going to just give stipends out to people when jobs are lost. And it's not just about manufacturing jobs now. It's not about like service. It's very different. It's going to be about white collar jobs. And like so much of an analyst, a researcher, like an account executive, but even someone who's even more strategic. Like it's just kind of like ChatGPT, Gemini, they're just going to be really, really helpful. And there's going to be so much technology introduced over the next few years that's going to bring it to a next level of layer of complexity, right? Of autonomy. And it's going to leave a lot of people wondering, like, what do I do? Like, this is the only thing I've done, like reports or like all of, and they're like, well, I can no longer do this. I don't have a job, or it's no longer important for me to do this type of work. And that will lead to an existential crisis, which is a spiritual one.
Yes.
And you see how it unfolds. You see how it's kind of like we're just right on time. And I think one of the most
Yeah.
important things is just, will we have the community support, the governmental support to do universal basic income? Because we are headed in that point where you do what you want to do. Be free. Like Whitney, cook for free, consult for free, because there will be money coming in the door. Like, it's like a wild thing for people who like have always worked, let's say corporate, or have like a plan. For entrepreneurs, it's like, wow, great, funding is going to be coming our way. But for a lot of people, they're going to be like, wait, what do I do? How do I spend my time? Like, this is crazy. Like, am I just on vacation? Like, you see?
See, I see the use of AI and the way jobs are going to change as us moving into the age where people get to develop their spiritual practice and learn about
Yes.
themselves
Yes.
and figure out their gifts, figure out their true likes and dislikes and what they want to explore and how they want to evolve their soul in this lifetime, which is the
Yes.
whole point of being here. So, and
Absolutely.
I think definitely during the time that we are all here on the planet, there's a lot of us that have had past lives, whether it's here or someplace
Hmm.
else. And so
Yes.
I think it's going to allow people to finally and feel and listen to all of the burdens that they've carried into this lifetime that they've never had time to resolve, and that they will get to resolve them and be free for the lifetimes after that.
I mean, when you say it like that, you're like, great, but actually going through it,
Hard.
it's very hard. And we are entering a stage where we'll be able to be more human. This frees up opportunity to be more creative, to be more intuitive and psychic and empathetic, and to read emotions. Like we're heading into a place where it's like machines, they won't be able to do this as well as humans. Like yet, eventually, I'm sure they will, but it's just like, hey, like how do I focus on what it means to be human and the
And
unique
hopefully,
parts?
yeah, hopefully we can use it just to continue to serve in the way we want to serve, but again, just have more time to work on ourselves, work on our relationships, have human experiences, explore the world, be in nature, all those things that we know so many of us want to have more time to do. But I will say, because I'm going through processing a past life right now, so none of those characters ever show up in my life ever again. Um, and I'm just trying to heal those wounds. And
Yeah.
I'm like 8 months in of crying
Yes.
every single day. It's
Yes.
tough. It's
It is. We go through
it's
cycles
tough.
where, like it's a tough time in one aspect of life, and then that area gets fixed, and then we move on to the next part of life, area of life that kind of like needs some work. It's like constant renovation in the house known as you.
It's so true. It's so true. But like once you get through one, like something frees up and you get a little break. You just never
Yes.
know
Yeah,
how long it's
you
gonna
don't know.
last.
You don't know how long the break is. So, like when things are going well, like really celebrate and have fun and of course do that like throughout the healing process as well. But I think sometimes it can be hard to not enjoy the present moment even when you are healing. There are times when, I have felt lulls in my business,
Mhm.
and I'm just like, no, I need more things to do. And my intuition, my higher self is like, you need this time to rest. You really do. And I'm just like spinning my wheels, being like, no, I got to do things. And then months later, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I really did need to use that time to rest because I didn't fully listen to myself. And now I'm a little tired.
Yeah. I try to tell that to my chefs and my team and myself as well when there's little lulls in the amount of clients that we have, that like this is a blessing, like rest, enjoy. work on yourself because it's all going to flow back in before you know it. But you have to coach yourself on it.
You do, you do. I think it's very different when you're working a 9 to 5, working for someone else. When
Yes.
you're a business owner, it's the lull is a lull in financial earnings as well. So you need to really like hold yourself and be like, this is a time for me to go inward, to kind of create some new offerings or just to rest so that I can really show up better. And I think that's probably one of the most important things to understand and to learn as an entrepreneur, especially as a spiritual entrepreneur, because your business is constantly changing because you are constantly changing and your business is part of your healing journey. So it's to start a business is one of the most profound ways to heal.
Interesting. Interesting. I never looked at it that way. Um, it's always, it's something that I couldn't have not done. It was just screaming at me my whole life,
Yes, it's
but
yes.
screaming at me probably because within that, there is something that I need to heal. There's something that my soul wants from an independent standpoint, from a freedom
Mm-hmm.
standpoint. So
Absolutely.
interesting.
Yeah, it's a really funny thing because when I tell that to people, I'm like, this is not for the faint of heart, but sometimes it's just like you can feel when something is like etched in stone for you. Like you're like, this is something I cannot escape. I must move
Yes.
through it, and this is the contract I've signed for myself. So really 2025 is about honoring like your soul contract and being honest with yourself. It's like no more autopilot. Like sometimes I like to say it's like nice to be a muggle.
I know. I
It's
know. I
like
say that too.
I just am like I'm like it's just nice to kind of dress up, go to like a bar, go to a restaurant and just feel like, you just finished your 9 to 5 job and you're just like just free. It's the weekend. Like it's like it's so funny, right? You're just like and then you realize this was a nice like break, but
But
I
it's not
just
who I am anymore. I can't.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
I
it's
do the
fun,
same
right?
thing.
It's
It's
fun to be a
so fun.
muggle for a little bit. And with like certain friend groups, you're just like, oh, you just kind of talk about like the same things. And it really like reminds you of your past life. And you're like, this was nice. This was nice. But back to
Yeah.
my reality.
Yeah, absolutely. I do the same thing. You know what's really interesting too, um, is I have found with like a lot of patterns that we move through in life. And when we're having to clear past lives or any blockages, they usually came up when we were kids, but we didn't have spirituality or astrology in our lives. And so, like a past life I'm working through right now, I started to see it, feel it. I started to interact with those people when I was 16. And as I'm working through it right now, I often think, God, I wish I could have gone to an astrologer or a card reader or a past life regressionist when I was 16. So I could have just moved through this,
It's
instead of
so,
carrying this for
yeah.
25 years.
It's so funny because I think a lot of the healers back then, they were too out there.
Yes.
It's like even if you're like let's say on the west coast, in like an Oregon or like a California,
Mhm.
like I think it would have been maybe a little bit easier for certain people, but it's still like it was only for a certain subset, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And I think about like I was always interested in these things like as a child, but it was always like this is not a real job. Like there aren't actual real people doing these things. And now children really have that ability, at least their parents do, to give them this extra support. Like
Yes. So I'd love to know how anyone that's listening who has kids, how they can use astrology or spirituality to better recognize what their children are going through, so they can provide support now and to make things a little lighter for them in the future.
this is so funny because I am very career and business oriented. You look at my chart, it's very apparent. But earlier this year, I started to create some content. I don't even know. I remember how it started, but then it kind of just became very popular on TikTok. So I continued. I was like, what is it like to have a year of the dragon baby? If it's like during Leo season, Sagittarius season. And when I was in Mexico City, which actually astrocartography wise, I didn't know this until like after, like my Mars line is there. And that means like I like want to take action. Like it really like is a place where I feel like, oh, I can do this, I can do that. And during that first visit to Mexico City this year, I created the astrology parenting guide. And as I was like writing it and getting those like orders in and kind of comparing it to the existing expanded career astrology report that I have and like kind of seeing like, oh, like what are some of the differences and similarities? Like I was just like, wow, like exactly what you said, Whitney. I wish I had this when I was younger. I wish my parents had this because in the astrology parenting guide, I decided to write it through the perspective of the child of like, when I'm feeling this, I need this. Or like, I have a difficult time processing emotions. So can you please help me process emotions in this way? Or sometimes like, I'm very curious, like I want to do a million different things. So I need focused. I need to be like, well, obviously children are all over the place, but certain children, they need more focused time. Like I
Yeah.
need more boundaries. I like to be told what to do. I like continuity. Also, there's certain children who are just like, like very precocious. I know a lot, I see a lot, so like sometimes that might get me in trouble. So just tell me, like give me a secret signal of like when I shouldn't be speaking up about something. So it's just really, really fun
Yeah.
to be able to provide these insights and to do it like write this astrology, like insight, these cosmic insights, like for parents, for their children.
Yeah. I mean, why not just make it more fun to have the experience with that soul? It can be a little lighter. It doesn't have to be the traditional family struggle.
No, no, and I talk about like, oh, what do they need to really feel like lit up, like
Yeah.
emotional support, what they need to self-soothe when they're feeling stressed, like how they see the world, their learning styles. That's a big thing for parents, like learning styles, like how do they learn, how do they process information. I also share like kind of the ways to allow them to feel expansive and grow. And I give a list of, okay, so let's say your child's north node is in Taurus. These are a list of activities that you can like sign them up for or take them to, have them like go on like field trips, so that they feel really excited. And so it's funny because I see it from the child's perspective, and then I extrapolate it out to my clients who are older, and I can make that connection of like, this is what would have been really great for you like 20 years ago, 30 years ago. So it's a very beautiful thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think those tools for I think more parents just need tools for raising their individual child because you can't look at the way it was done for you. It's not as easy to just sign them up and send them to public school and just think that that's going to take care of it. Everyone needs an
No
individualized,
approach.
yes, approach. It's not as black and white. It probably never was, but it's definitely like you need to be aware and present.
Yeah, and I think, in the coming years, more parents are going to be pulling their kids out of like traditional
I do
school.
too. Yeah.
And I think the best way to do it so that kids can still feel very like social, because I think socialization is the biggest thing from the traditional like current like structure that we have is like, Thursdays and Fridays you go to school and it's going to be maybe around like art activities, like sports, like things to do team building, like, or team interactions. And then like, Monday through Wednesday, it's like heads down doing work. But honestly, kids only really need like let's say a couple hours of just like focus like reading and testing, and then really like the rest should be exploring, like they should be gardening, they should be like frolicking in the like actual hands-on
Hands on.
activities.
Yes. Yes, that's when they want it. All you got to do is reflect on your own childhood, and you know. Uh,
I remember
yeah,
all my hands-on activities, and I was like, that was wildly fun when we cleaned the stream.
yeah, yeah. I feel very lucky. I always had scheduled after school activities with
Mm-hmm.
groups of kids, and it was always hands-on playtime, whether it was planting trees, art classes, sports. Yeah. I feel very lucky, but I grew up with have a mom who's a speech pathologist, and she had
Oh,
so many she was in a group of friends where
yeah.
everyone was some sort of child psychologist. So I was well analyzed and
Yeah.
got, a preschool education that she knew was right for me. My brother was analyzed. He went to a different preschool than I did because we needed different teaching styles.
Wow.
So my
I
mom
never
was a
got
head
that.
Yeah, my mom was ahead of her time with that. So, right, I'm a Gemini. I
Yeah.
get distracted easily. It's hard for me
Yes.
to complete projects. So, she
Yes.
sent me to Montessori so I would learn to start a project and complete it before I can move on to the next.
They're very rule, like structure oriented in Montessori. It's like kids can clean up after themselves. They will like serve themselves lunch. Like they will put themselves for down for nap time.
Yes. And my brother was super structured. She needed to lighten him up. So she sent him to a very hippie school where he would be outside playing with animals, getting dirty because he didn't like to get dirty. So, but not every adult is equipped to be able to read their children. So we have to tap into these tools that allow us to read these kids and support them along their path.
Yeah, astrology is really just a tool to understand energy. The birth chart is an energetic blueprint of opportunities and challenges and gifts and kind of like what is available to you. And I think that we will use these tools of energy, like kind of like, reading the chakras, like yoga, mindfulness, meditation, astrology, human design, like tapping, like all these different things until we don't need them anymore. Because you'll just kind of just like understand, you'll like see someone be in a situation, you'll just be like, like I feel X, Y, and Z. Like it's really just all of these things share the same insights and information, but like which way would you like to go, right? Like, how would you like to get that information? It's like we have a million different pizza shops, but each pizza shop is different. There's many different places to go for lunch. So it's like, where do you want to go for lunch? It's very much the same as these like spiritual and holistic wellness modalities. Like, it's kind of like it's all going to be doing the same thing, but it's like, how would you like it to be done?
Love to know as we move into 2025 or we're there, and it is a year where more spirituality is unfolding. Like, what are you really into learning about and exploring and tapping into? What's new for
Well,
you?
Well, because I have a Northwood in Pisces, I don't have a lot of water placements, like signs and like house, like houses. I'm a very structured, very earth heavy person. And I have known for quite some time that 2025 will very much so be the unfolding of like more psychic abilities. So I'm just like, I don't know what that's going to look like. Is it going to be mediumship? Am I going to be seeing spirits? Like, I don't know what it's going to be, but I welcome it. And I already see that with my astrology, it's changing and it's growing. So it's not just about career and business anymore. I see that it's the incorporation of also like children and family dynamics. Like for me, and from a traditional, like, let's say, like business aspect, it's like, it doesn't make quite a lot of sense to diversify like this at this stage of the business. But my intuition was like, no, this is the time to do it. And I'm just like, okay, well, it's not as popular as my other things, but sure, like, okay, like I will continue doing this. And I think that in 2025, it's really about trust and about allowing things to unfold. So if something doesn't make sense to you in your business, in your life, in your work, but your intuition is like, do it, like follow these like
Yeah.
breadcrumbs, please follow these breadcrumbs. Next
Okay.
year, the words are truth and trust.
Truth and trust.
Truth and trust. It's just, and so I'm excited to dive in more into astrology because really it's like there's so much to be learned, just like cooking, right? Just like nutrition. There's like a wealth of information. It's like an
It's
endless
endless. Yeah.
well of information. So I am very excited to learn more and kind of bring things together. I'll be starting a membership in January. Like, I know, so it's like unfolding, like, what is it going to look like? And, what support am I giving to people? And I think it's going to be a very different way than what's already out there. So I'm just excited to kind of like do my own thing and trust in the process of like, it's different. It's not what maybe people are used to, what I'm used to, but I'm like, okay, it's
Absolutely. How did you know that 2025 was going to be the year that more intuitive abilities were going to open up for you?
Well, it's because it's going to be my nodal return. So my North Node is in Pisces, and collectively we'll be experiencing a North Node in Pisces as well. So this is known as a nodal return. And during this time, it's really about accelerating your growth and kind of really shifting onto the right path if you haven't been on the right path. So we're always working towards our purpose, but it's almost like kind of like an alignment, right? Of like, this is what's in my birth chart, this is what's happening collectively. So I'm on like the HOV lane. of like getting to where I want to go, but also
Yeah.
it's like, oh, and we're going a little bit fast. Like I need to like, be focused on the road. And so some people will experience a lot of challenges. Others will experience challenges in different ways. I know next year it's about me letting go of control, allowing things to unfold. And specifically, I know one of my lessons is to like allow my partner to take care of me, which I'm just like, "Ugh, I'm not sure how I feel about. Very foreign, very like being very vulnerable. I'm like these are things I've been exploring already. As an example to help people better understand. This year, we've gone through a North Node in Aries. So, approximately if you're around 36 or 37, you went through your nodal return. Everyone's experiencing that collective questioning and understanding of like, how do I want to show up? How do I want to lead? What are my boundaries? What are my values? Which relationships are toxic? Which relationships no longer serve? There's so much shuffling right now around like friendships and like work relationships and relationships in general. A lot of clients with like, oh, like I've separated from my partner, or I've like have a new group of friends, or like so much has changed. And if you have your North Node in Aries, you have been pushed to become a different type of leader, to leave behind people pleasing tendencies, and to kind of like find your own way. So that's a 2024 example for what 2025 is going to be like.
Got it. So interesting. Trying to think of where else I want to take this. This was so helpful. I just hope it's a smoother year because I've been in my midlife crisis astrological lineup, and that is what the Uranus return.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm just hoping for a smoother year in 2025. I am
I believe
hoping
I told you
I'm
it
getting
will
out
be a
of it.
smoother year.
Yeah. And this is also 2024 was an 8 year, which was ruled by Saturn. And
Mm,
Saturn is
yes.
hard.
It is hard. It is hard. It's like a Saturn and Pisces, so there's just a lot of kind of like do I trust myself? Like what is like my truth? And like a lot of kind of like maybe dissociation of like what is real, what is not real. Exploration of like creativity, feeling creatively stuck. There's been a lot of that, and that'll continue into next year, but it'll change just because, there's some other elements in the mix. But yeah, I think if you've been feeling kind of like not fully your creative capacity, very normal.
Any other tools that you recommend that people consider applying or doing in the beginning of January or even into February to kind of reset and
Yeah.
relaunch for a new year?
Yeah, so I would definitely recommend that you spend time outside if possible. Spending time alone so that you can really deeply reflect. And something fun that people can explore is if they do practice yoga or they do practice like meditation, is just to spend one day at a studio. Like take all the classes or take more than one class, because then you just make your own like mini retreat.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, take a class in the morning, take a class at night, maybe in between, like make a nourishing meal for yourself, get a massage. Like it's that easy, and it's not really cost prohibitive. There's a lot of different ways to do it.
That's a great way to create your own spa day.
Mhm.
Make sure you have salts at home. You can take a salt bath in the evening.
Mhm.
That's brilliant. I love that.
And honestly, I feel like the new year doesn't really start until like March. The
Yep.
start of like Aries season and like the
Yes.
spring equinox. So like during the first few months of the year, it's probably going to feel a little bit slow, probably until like the end, like early February, purely because we have a Mars retrograde in Leo. So especially for people who create content, it's and are in sales and marketing functions, it might be a little bit challenging for you to like muster up like your full 110% energy of like showing up. I know for myself, I have a Leo sun, so literally it was a couple days before, I believe it was December 5th when it happened, and I was already feeling this, and it like on the day it like hit me so hard. I was just like, I cannot create content. I cannot do it anymore. It's really anytime a planet is in retrograde is a time of like introspection and to reflect. And for myself, I have been getting this message of just like, film the things you need to film for continuity purposes. People come to me for new and full moon things, but then just schedule it, take the time off. And there's a couple things I need to write that need to really get onto paper, and I need to design it and all of that. And of course, my membership. So, for any like business owners, any creators out there, it's not that you're not going to be able to create, you have to create differently and honor that.
And just allow ourselves to have a slow roll into the new year.
I know, and people are probably just like, well, of course, it's the holiday season. And I'm like, yes, but Mars always goes into retrograde around this time.
Yeah,
So it
we're
makes
supposed to slow down.
it makes a lot of sense, right?
Yeah, it's still winter time, and people forget that winter is slow. So just move slow, take some time off, and yeah, move with the energy. Thank you so much, Alice. I find as an astrologer, talking to you and getting insights from you are always very uplifting
You.
because you do always bring it back to career. You do always find the silver lining. And I really appreciate that. So I really hope if anyone's listening and they've never had their chart done or they just aren't familiar with their own personal astrology, please check out Alice. She is a fantastic resource and she does a lot of group events in Los Angeles. So if you're looking to meet like minded people, which I think we all are, definitely check out her offerings.
Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure.
This was so lovely. I love our conversations, whether they are recorded or not. We
Yes, me
always
too.
have so much to talk about, and I'm very excited for you next year because, you are also very psychic and very intuitive.
Thank you. We'll see what comes on board. I think, like with everybody, sometimes those downloads are overwhelming. So we consciously or unconsciously flip the switch. So I'm really looking forward to turning the switch higher next year. And I know for me, one of the things that works best for me is travel. I am very land activated. And when I move, even if I move like a mile away. New abilities will come on board, new insights will come on board, but I really have to travel next year and I need to get in water in different parts of the world. So that's what I'm currently plotting is how I can travel
Let me
so I can
see.
get some activations. Because
This
I
is,
just
yes,
I
this
just
makes a
want
lot of sense.
does this make sense when you look at my chart?
Yes, I'm looking at it. I'm going to forward your expanded report to you again, just so you have it. But yes, you're very much so like of the earth. You really enjoy local travel. It's very healing for you to be traveling locally. And lucky you, you're in like California. So there's just so much to see, so much to do year round. And like, like eventually you're just going to have your own farm.
Yeah, so it's so funny that you said that because this past year I've been reignited in traveling California and the Southwest. So I'm going to the Esalen Institute for a few days to get in the hot
Okay.
springs there and to go up
Yes.
north.
Yes.
I'm going to go to New Mexico and Sedona,
Mm.
but yeah, there's just so much bubbling up. I'm just trying to figure out how to navigate it all while running a business that requires me to be hands-on in person, right?
I know those are the things that are a little bit challenging, but you'll figure out along the way and
Yeah.
it'll work out.
And if anyone's listening and they want me to cook a dinner party for them or a cooking class or a one-off meal prep somewhere else in the United States, I am willing to come and travel. It's time to get some
Yes.
movement happening. Yeah, right?
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So great to
So
chat.
cheers to just a wonderful 2025 for you, for me, for everyone's listening. And maybe we can find a way to check in with the audience kind of midway through the year and find
Of
out.
course.
I think we'll take some polls on Instagram
Okay.
around the time that this episode comes out, find out how people are feeling, what they're looking forward to, how they want to use the energy, and then just check in with them 6 months from now and see how things have come to fruition.
Absolutely. Until
All
then,
right. Thank you, Alice.
you're welcome.